Scientists don't always get it right. In fact, some of the weirdest animals on Earth were once considered complete hoaxes. From creatures too bizarre to be real, to reports so strange they were laughed out of academia, these are the animals that science initially refused to believe. Their discoverers were mocked, dismissed, and in one tragic case, driven to suicide. But as it turns out, the truth was far stranger than fiction. These 10 incredible animals not only exist, they rewrote the rules of what we thought was possible in the natural world. 1. Gorillas were thought to be mythic beast men. Until their discovery in the mid-19th century, gorillas existed only as a myth, a man-ape hybrid known for their ferocious brutality. It may seem crazy now, but the first explorers' reports of gorillas told tales of a massive ape that would join native tribesmen around their fires and beat elephants into submission with fallen logs. Scientists at the time dismissed these tall tales, but that changed when a gorilla skull was discovered in 1846. Thanks to the work of biologists like Dian Fossey, we now know gorillas are not the hateful monsters the myths described, but are in fact gentle and curious primates who are remarkably human. But gorillas aren't the only creatures that baffled scientists. If one mighty ape could be mistaken for a legend, imagine what they thought when faced with a creature that looked like a mashup of half a dozen different animals. 2. The platypus was too weird to believe. Platypuses are quite possibly the strangest mammals in existence. The fact they lay eggs is the least of oddities, as they also have the bill of a duck, the tail of a beaver, and venomous spines attached to their webbed feet. Scientists first got a look at these creatures in the late 18th century, as its hide was sent back to Britain from Australia. But they thought it so bizarre, they were convinced it was a hoax or a twisted joke. The first specimens sent to Europe were taxidermized skins, and people wrote it off. But then, around 1860, scientist George Bennett saw living platypuses in the wild. He studied them in great detail, and the scientific community finally realized a new species of animal existed. And just when scientists thought they'd seen the limits of bizarre biology, they were hit with stories of dragons. Not in fairy tales, but on an island far away in Indonesia. 3. An island full of dragons shocked Dutch explorers. When Dutch settlers in Indonesia first heard tales of an island full of monstrous lizards that could grow to over 20 feet in length, it must have sounded totally insane. The year was 1910, and Lt. J.K.H. Van Steen van Hensbroek was instantly curious. The stories were tantalizing enough that he organized to visit the island of Komodo to verify the rumors. What they found was an island populated by dragons. Although they were smaller than the folk tales described, the Komodo dragon soon became an icon of naturalism, proving there were still some pockets of the world hiding amazing, unique animals. The idea that such mythical creatures could actually roam the earth made people wonder, if dragons were real, what else could be? That's when the legends of a godlike turtle began to resurface. 4. The Honekeem turtle was revered by locals as a god. This giant freshwater turtle is known in the scientific world as the Yangtze giant soft-shell turtle, but in Vietnam, it was treated as a god. It wasn't until 1873 that scientists laid eyes on this mythic creature, but thanks to habitat loss, it was pushed to the brink of extinction. One turtle in particular, called Kurua, sometimes Kim Kui by the locals, was believed to be the reincarnation of a mythical animal that was said to live in the Honekeem Lake over 600 years ago. This species was thought to be extinct in the wild, but stories from Honekeem about a legendary turtle living in the lake in 2008 spurred zoologists to examine the area. Shortly afterwards, Kurua was discovered, and the Yangtze giant soft-shell turtle was brought back from the dead. Unfortunately, the death of Kurua in 2016 means there are only 3 confirmed specimens still living, all of which are in captivity. These turtles are critically endangered, and may soon slip back into myth. But turtles weren't the only so-called mythical creatures hiding in plain sight. Deep in the rainforests of Africa, whispers of a striped unicorn-like animal stirred curiosity. 5. Okapis were Africa's unicorns. These exotic mammals are the only living relative of giraffes, and they were believed to be as mythical as the unicorn. Many of their features were considered mystical, like the tongue that can reach its own eyes, its zebra-like hind legs, and its near-supernatural hearing that allowed it to avoid hunters. In 1909, an expedition set out with the intent of proving the existence of the okapi in Africa and bringing a live specimen back to the US. After months, a baby okapi was discovered and captured. Unfortunately, the infant would not survive the expedition out of the jungle, but its discovery proved without a doubt the African unicorn was not just a legend. Just like the okapi emerged from myth into reality, another creature from nautical legend was making waves literally. Its massive tentacles and seafaring attacks would one day prove the kraken was no mere sailor's tale. 6. The kraken turned out to be real. The legend of the kraken, a mythical sea monster who would attack ships with its massive tentacles, goes as far back 1180 CE. It would take almost 700 years before evidence of a giant squid would ever be found. The myth became a reality in 1857, when a giant squid washed up on a beach in Denmark, and Norwegian scientist Japita Steenstrup managed to salvage the mythical creature's beak. It would take another 150 years for one of these magnificent animals to be seen alive. And while the kraken swam in the deepest oceans, one woman walked the windswept coastlines of England and uncovered a prehistoric beast whose body structure seemed biologically impossible. 7. Plesiosaurus was thought to have an impossible anatomy. The story of the Plesiosaurus is really the story of Mary Onning, a 19th-century British fossil hunter who defied the odds to become one of the most influential figures in paleontological history. She was a poor woman with little education who lived near the coasts of Lyme Regis, a seaside English town. After the death of her father, Mary began exploring the coasts for curious items that she could sell. What she didn't know until later was that the coast was one of the most fossil-rich in the world, and she was instrumental in the discovery of pterodactyls, ichthyosaurs, and the Plesiosaurus. Famed French anatomist Georges Cuvier doubted the discoveries of this uneducated woman, and refused to accept the Plesiosaurus was a real animal. By his understanding, it would have been impossible for an animal with 35 vertebrae in the neck alone to be able to breathe. The number of vertebrae is not found in any living animal. But in 1821, geologist William Coney Beer came to Anning's defense and proved beyond a doubt the discovery was genuine. Georges Cuvier eventually admitted he had been wrong, and would go on to praise Anning's discoveries. But while fossils slowly earn their place in scientific truth, some discoveries came with personal cost. For one man, proving his theory about a strange little toad would end in tragedy. 8. Allegations about midwife toads led a famed researcher to suicide. The unique properties of the midwife toad were so unbelievable at the time of their discovery. The scientist who first observed them was castigated by the scientific community. So much so he eventually committed suicide in 1926. Paul Kammerer, an Austrian biologist, ran several experiments on the effect of the environment on the reproduction of midwife toads. He learned these toads, who normally live and reproduce on land, could be manipulated into reproducing in water by raising the temperature of the environment. Even more amazing, he observed that after several generations, his midwife toads had physically adapted to be more similar to waterborne species and would prefer an aquatic lifestyle. Even after he set temperatures back to normal, he recorded the development of nuptial pads on the toad's forearms, something believed impossible in midwife toads. A colleague of Kammerer's, scientist G.K. Noble, decided to investigate his claims. After examining one of the toads, Noble claimed they had been injected with indigo ink in an attempt to mimic true nuptial pads. Although Camera left many notes stating his findings were valid, the embarrassment of the public shaming led him to suicide. We now know Camera was right. Midwife toads can grow nuptial pads under the right conditions. Misunderstood animals weren't just a problem of biology, they were often tangled up in cultural myths. Just ask the early scientists who had to sort out whether a bird from religious folklore was fact or fiction. 9. Pelicans were thought to be beasts of Christian myth. As bizarre as it may sound, pelicans were once considered to be creatures of Christian myth. Carl Linnaeus was a Swedish biologist who penned the Systema Naturae in 1735, a text designed to classify animals, but is still used by scientists to this day. In this book, he reserves a chapter for animals of myth he was unable to confirm at that time. The pelican is among these entries. Many people in the 18th century believed pelicans were mythic birds that could reanimate the dead by pecking its own chest and feeding blood to the deceased. Specifically, this was something mother pelicans would do if their babies died. Because of this, the pelican was seen as a symbol of the self-sacrificing parent in Christian mythology. Yet even by the late 1800s, strange and colorful birds continued to surprise the world. One such bird from New Guinea was so outrageous in appearance, even seasoned ornithologists called it a prank. 10. The King of Saxony bird of paradise was thought to be a hoax. This remarkable bird is distinctive for its unusually long feathers, which it uses to impress potential mates. When this New Guinean bird was first described in 1894, famed ornithologist Richard Bowdler-Sharp was sure it was a hoax. In particular, he found the male's long feathers completely unbelievable. He would write himself, "I could not help exclaiming that it was impossible that such a bird could exist in nature." From forest giants once feared as monsters, to delicate birds thought too beautiful to be real, these creatures remind us that science is not just a process of answers, but of wonder, humility, and constant rediscovery. The world is stranger than we think, and just maybe, there's still something out there waiting to rewrite the rules all over again. If you enjoyed this dive into the wild and the weird, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss the next incredible tale. Who knows, next time, we might uncover something even science doesn't see coming.